to be able to protect government assets. 3 weeks was more than enough to try to form a government that would hit the ground running. You could not be on VOA talking about 100 days deliverable when in fact almost 50 days into your administration, the government is not yet formed. We think it demonstrates a huge lack of capacity, and not just that, you have crisis brewing at our mining concessions, and we think all of this is a clear result of the lack of capacity that we have warned that Boakai did not have. He's too old to govern the country. He doesn't have energy. Neither does he have the capacity. And we warn about that, and it's beginning to manifest itself. We strongly believe that the so-called 100 days deliverable was just an empty talk. Our people must ignore people who only want to lead for the fulfillment of the childhood dream. Boakai wanted to be president as far back as 1982. Not that he wanted to be president because he had any clear vision, because his entire performance record showed that. Wherever he served in government, he's basically just a bureaucrat. And he lacks the capacity and energy to lead the trillions of problems we have in this country. Bad road, poor education, health, failing economy, inflation. All of these things are serious problems, and we think you need a serious person with a performance track record from the private sector to lead our country. The president of Liberia clearly must have energy, vitality, creativity, education, and a proven performance track record to move this country forward. So far, Boakai's biggest deliverable is the killing of our people in Western Liberia, fixing of his residence, buying himself some new clothes, and some fake drug test report that he and his 419 vice president presented to us. Almost 50 days into the administration, the drug committee formed by President Boakai have not even met. Some of the ministers involved don't even have cars to go to work. Or deputy ministers have not even been appointed as some of those ministries. So you can see that it was all talk. The government of Liberia is already financially obese, but the recent presidential appointments reveal that there will be increased financial costs. Positions like director of the cabinet that have become redundant have all been resuscitated. Several advisors in government, some ministries, they have deputy ministers, additional deputy ministers have been appointed, labor and some other places. You have additional deputy ministerial portfolios have been created. Every time you create an additional structure in government, that's a cost, additional cost. There's already a track. Charles Taylor left about 35,000. Charles Taylor to Judy Bryant left about 35,000 government workers. Ellen took it to 50,000, 55,000. We are talking to 70,000. So with all of these creations, you're going to take it up further. We're talking $314 million spent on payroll, including pensioners. Then you also have another $283 million spent on recurrent and non-financial costs. If you increase, so now you're talking a total of 597 million United States dollars that is part of the government expenditure envelope. So with all of these costs increase, every one of those offices needs to be staffed. They need to bring more people to government. What that means is the cost of running the government will exceed more than 600 million before this year ends. And we think that is worrying. We think there are more creative ways in which you can reward loyalists other than creating additional deputy ministerial portfolios. And to this end, we will advance all sorts of suggestions at the close of these issues that we identified. The thousands of government employees affected by harmonization brave the storm, the rain, and on the day of the Unity Party launch, thousands of people got onto the streets in the rain. And these were mostly harmonized employees. It is clear at this juncture, with all of these creations, that the issue of harmonized pay would never be discussed. Those people who braved the storm, hoping to get some kind of solution under the Boakai administration, it's not going to happen. Boakai is a consummate bureaucrat, incapable of getting anything done other than making fan speeches. So the harmonized pay is all gone, and I can predict that if you're not careful, you will have another harmonized arrangement, because if we're not careful, the wage bill, the number of people working for government may probably rise for about another 10, 15,000. And it means that you will have to find money to pay them. Right now, like I told you, we're spending $597 million just to support the government. Just the government, I'm not even talking about, I'm just talking about the government expenditure envelope alone, not in terms of projects or anything, because they divided it into something called PSRP, you know, the Public Sector Investment Program. So the PSRP is when they fix some kind of road or build some toilet somewhere, then they say, you know, they've done some level of investment for the people. So I'm not even talking about the PSRP budget, I'm just talking about the core expenditure, recurrent and non-financial expense and salaries. But all hope is not lost. We want to say to the people of Liberia, Simeon Freeman and the MPC, when we have the opportunity for power in this country, we will create jobs, deal with the issue of education, health, and above all else, create a very vibrant economy. We are quite troubled and disheartened by what happened in the Western Liberia with the killing of Liberians that had issues with management. We think this thing was so simple. You could have dispatched the Ministry of Labor and their officials to go to deal with grieving people and find out whether they had issues in the first place, or not whether they had issues, but whether the issues were legitimate, and engage with the management and try to solve these problems. But one of the first tactics is to begin to use live bullets on our people. We think that's sad, and we think that's troubling, and we urging for the perpetrators to be brought to justice as quickly as possible, so that we don't have this culture where whenever there is a challenge, people use live bullets. Because when you start to use live bullets, when another group of aggrieved people come together to demonstrate, they may also get their own bullets because they know they could be shot at. So we want to encourage the government to discourage this approach, because it's not going to add value to us as a people. The issue of the budget delay, the draft national budget, almost 50 days later, still non-available, has not been provided. You know, and this opens us up to a core debate. And the debate clearly is, should we meet everybody in government when a new government takes over as an enemy of the new government because they work under the old administration? And I think that's where the challenge is to the civil service. The framers of the Constitution have three institutions: civil service, GAC, and NEC. And the reason was that the civil service is supposed to be the heart of the government. So if we have key positions within the ministries of finance and other ministries that are manned by technicians that are employed under the civil service agency, then it doesn't matter who becomes minister, who becomes deputy minister, who becomes whatever. If we say to be a director, you have to be a civil servant and you must have the competence. All these kinds of issues wouldn't even come to pass, because then a new minister will not be struggling to find the requisite technicians to firstly understand the budget before drafting it. So almost 50 days later, we're not talking deliverable, even a budget cannot be presented. So lesson learned is that the civil service agency, these key positions must be preserved for the good of our country and for the good of public policy. And that brings us into the issue of many of these positions, tenure positions. We're hearing some of the very sick and weak argument about the fact that these institutions were not created by the Constitution. That's very weak. The Constitution gives power to the legislature to create these institutions. So then let's shut down LEC that was not created by the Constitution. It was created by the legislature. Let's shut down LTA, let's shut down all of these institutions that were created by the legislature. The legislature represents the people and they have the power to create. Now, in order to avoid, now let's take the central bank. The central bank is not created by the Constitution, it's created by an act of the legislature. Now, if you don't tenure the central bank governor position, somebody is president and say, my man, bring all the money over there, put it in one plane, I'm going. The man is not a tenure man. He's going to take all that money because he's afraid to be fired. He serves at the will and pleasure of the president. Because he's not a tenure guy, he could take all the money. Take Social Security, similar thing. Social Security collect money from various institutions, private and public, and it has a lot of money. It has a lot of money, and these are investments. When you reach age 60, then you're supposed to start being paid, and I stand to be corrected. But if you start to appoint people like the LTA, the act that created those institutions, and all of these institutions that are tenure, basically have said, I mean, all of these institutions created tenure positions and said, look, we want people serving in these positions for a time limit so that there will be consistency in engagement with the private sector, so that tomorrow you don't get up and somebody has been fired. And so it also says the president appoints them. Now, so here's the thing. George, it said the president. It doesn't say President Boakai. It doesn't say President Freeman. It says the president. So they were appointed by a president for a tenure. If this president wants to create jobs for his people, simply put, pay the people off. If they acquiesce, if they don't, and they want to serve their tenure, they serve, and then you can now appoint when the other guy's tenure is exhausted. But all of these positions basically were created for public policy stability, which doesn't threaten the whole concept of tenure. So the fact that a president can come to power and appoint just everybody, we need to move away from that fallacy. The other weak argument they're placing is that these people campaign. But nowhere it says that when you are a tenure employee, your rights have been seized, that you can't campaign for somebody or you can't promote. America that will follow for democracy. Journalists on the radio support a party and say it openly. Journalists, civil society guys support a party and say it openly. Tenure employees support that. So the issue of the ombudsman that is being misunderstood, the ombudsman is supposed to do a few things. If there are violations, like in the case where it says resign 2 years prior to, if you want to be a representative or senator, or other things, like for example, you are a minister using government car to go to a campaign rally, they can hold you for that, and then penalties can be defined. The legislature have not done that. A law has not been passed. Suddenly now we want to use that. Turks are being sent. Are these not some of the same things that happened under the Weir administration, where this guy from, well, I think LERT or something, when Weir came to power, he was booted out, Turks went there. So you came to rescue. What are you rescuing? So if you come in with the same gangster attitude, then how different are you? So, you know, we want to encourage the media to challenge these kinds of things, because these kinds of occurrences cannot be allowed to prosper or fester in our society. We must challenge them head on. Then we also are drawn to the no car stuck in the mud policy. 100 days later, by March, April, the road to the southeast will be a no-go zone. We have not formed a government, so there is no issue. We have not even submitted a budget. So there is no issue of 100 days. You know, I think President Boakai went to America, somebody gave him some fine wine, and the guy was just talking. No cars talking the mud policy, you know, 100 days, this will not happen. These things don't happen like that. you have to sit down with your technicians, understand the core challenges, and then proffer clear solutions. But you went and were talking, now we're asking where do we stand with our policy. Liberians in Ghana, Bujumbura, have been harassed, challenged, assaulted. Ghana is a sisterly country, an Anglophone country in West Africa, part of the ECOWAS protocol. We have thousands of Ghanaians living in this country. Cape Man, Sino, Riverses, Bassa, Montserrat. We are not troubling them. They've been here for years. Some of them even carry Liberian passport. We think the government of Liberia quickly need to address this issue so that we don't have a case where Liberians are treated anyhow, anywhere, by any of our neighbors. The issue of the killing of Josephus Tokba, 42 years old, I'm told. Yeah. Look, let's face it. I've spoken to a lot of people. I have one of my nieces living in a Park-Up-In area there. She says she's been trying to talk to LEC for the last 1 year. And a lot of you probably know. LEC comes in the area, everybody's excited. You try to go to LEC, it's to and fro, unless you know somebody there's a who know you system. And if you don't know anybody, you don't get connected. So the people say eventually, after going to and fro, they just do something that is illegal and get connected because the power is available. They can't afford a generator, so they take that. So I think the problem with LEC is that LEC must firstly overhaul itself to be able to provide the meters. The LEC needs funding. It must go to a bank, get a loan, and we can always be on waiting for European Union, waiting for the LEC is a business. That's why, look, under our Simeon Freeman administration, LEC, one of the first institutions I will lease out. Before we even come to privatizing it, we lease it also, it become a money-making institution rather than the way we currently current. And so we think if you have sufficient meters, right, and you're selling out these meters and connecting people, there's somebody else I know who, the guy got a meter, and you know the meter comes, I'm told, with some $15. He was calling them to open the meter, the $15 ran out, and there was a whole nother stuff again. They had to send somebody else because they say when it runs out, there's something they have to do on the meter. It's a lot of stress people report. So sometimes too, these things have to be looked at from 2 points. If you want people to obey the rules, you have your phone. If you want to get a new SIM card today, you can go on the street and easily get a SIM card. There will be no need for theft. But I think LEC itself is incentivizing the process. So firstly, we say de-incentivize the process by overhauling yourselves and make all of these meters available. Then we will now appeal to the legislature to criminalize power theft if it is not already the case. Now, if you have the meters and LEC as assistance providing it, then we can look at it from that perspective of criminalizing. But in the same vein, we want to urge the government to quickly investigate the death of Josephus Tokba, who was killed as a result of the power theft issue. We must not encourage the fact that our citizens, desirous of having access to power, will lose their life because of water and power. And like I was saying, look, let's realistically face it. As president, I will lease up LEC tomorrow morning, the first day. And I will form a new corporation owned by Liberians exclusively. They don't necessarily have to have the money. We give them LEC to run for the first 5 years. And we work with the legislature to sell it to them. And maybe we say, look, we're selling LEC for $300 million after, assessing the assets. That group can then go out and form the kind of partnerships. It will be corporation. LEC will be a purely private affair run by these group of Liberians who will begin to make money. If they need some level of support through the central bank to the commercial bank, they can be supported. But it's not going to be a thing where when LEC has a problem, government subsidize it. I remember during the Madam Sirleaf administration, we spent millions of dollars on LEC, and LEC did not bring $1 brass copper to the treasury. Now Boakai has come to power. It's our understanding, we stand to be corrected, that I think we owe 9 million, 11 million. People throw these figures around. But you journalists will know better, know better than me, that this new government has inherited this huge liability. So what happened with all the money that was paid to LEC? Now if LEC says power theft, then we say overhaul so that power theft become dormant. Leverage technology. You can see from Celcom, you can see from DSTV, you can see from Lone Star, you can see from any one of the technology-driven companies. You can go see from mobile money. Why are people stealing from LEC? Technology is there to correct that. You know how much power you generate, you know how much power you put in this area, you know how much you're getting out, you know where the difference is, you know how to punish an entire area to get compliance. But more besides, we saying LEC, overhaul yourself, provided meters that people are craving for so that they don't have to steal the power. The US students, I think about 20, 30 of them were gathered and they were demanding some actions, and we saw that they were brutally handled. We think this government is starting on a bad track where it's brutal and wise, because they taught the AFL guys who come to the streets, but now with other citizens coming to the streets, they decided, look, let's be brutal. We think these things can be solved, but we also want to commend the fact that there has been some kind of understanding when it comes to these things. In concluding, ladies and gentlemen, many times we think Liberia is this country that we are God's special child, and that we have all of the opportunities, and that people will want to come here anyway. I said the other day when I spoke at SEAL, with $500,000 US dollar, you will be granted a green card to live in America, you and your spouse and all your children, if you have $500,000. People who have 1 million, 2 million to invest, they can decide, look, let's pick Kenya, let's pick Tanzania, let's pick Ethiopia, let's pick Ghana, let's pick Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal. All of these economies are performing. Or the guy can decide, look, I don't want to invest in Africa like in India, because return on investment in India is far better than all of the headache in Africa. We in Liberia need to take some quick steps. We've said this severally, and we said that during the past administration. Let Liberia be a visa-free country. That's the first step to attracting investment. The reason why entrepreneurship flourished in places like Rwanda, Kenya, is because if you live in Tanzania or you live in Equatorial Guinea, you don't need a visa to go to Rwanda. All you need is your $100,000 and say, okay, I want to establish a nice restaurant, a restaurant in Monrovia, right? And then now you're coming to invest $200,000. When we lift visa restrictions to Liberia, it's going to open a whole new floodgate of possibilities. Also, what attracts investors, and especially in the value addition sector, are things like the incentives that you give for investment. Start with us first. What kind of incentives are you giving to people that are investing in Liberia? The only thing that tax authorities may probably be interested in, even if you open your shop, but then you got to pay your taxes. In other economies, they incentivize, I'm sure you've heard big economic words like quantitative easing. Simple. The government of America gave money to businesses, gave them opportunities, and what happened? That money circulates within the economy and it creates jobs. We think if local businesses are incentivized, instead of the government being the largest employer, the private sector would be the largest employer. So let's say we want to attract businesses to Bond County. We can decide, look, if you establish a manufacturing business in Bond County, we're going to give you 100% duty-free for the next 5 years. We're going to target all businesses that will be established in Bond County. We pay 10% corporate income tax or 5% corporate income tax. It means that businesses here and elsewhere abroad can say, oh, you know, if I establish in Bond County in Liberia, these are the possibilities I'm going to have. The other thing has to do with interest rate. This 14% interest rate regime for US dollar. It's crazy. Imagine America is on a 5% interest rate and you're having so much trouble in their part of the world. 14% kills. So what we need to do is to lower that interest rate to at least 9% to start. First step, 9%. The central bank needs to take that step. The second step the central bank needs to take is to increase the quantity of money commercial banks have access to. This whole thing of taking the depositors' deposit and keeping it at the central bank, using it for their own expenditure, investing it abroad or keeping it abroad, is strangulating the economy. We need to make sure banks have access to more resources. The third thing is increasing the single obligor limit. That single obligor limit is where you can only borrow. Now you have lots of businesses generating capacity. At the current speed and trend, we will go nowhere if we don't change this trend. I want to thank you for